Today we're looking specifically at mining, and I wanted to start with not coal mining, but just mining in general. This is a beautiful image of a place called Giant Crystal Cave. I wonder how they came up with that name. This is in Mexico, and they found it by accident. This used to be underwater, and they accidentally mined it while they were mining a different part of the cave. And so they discovered this amazing place. It almost looks like something out of a movie. It looks unreal. But if you, there's documentaries on YouTube about this place. It's just uh, literally unworldly. They're wearing special suits that run refrigerated water all around their bodies because it's 150 degrees in there or something. And they're only allowed to be in there half hour at a time. It's just very interesting place. Nowhere else like it on earth, except there's probably lots of places like it. We just don't know about them. The mineral that you see there is called selenite, and it's a form of gypsum. And you might recall the word gypsum. It was in the video the other day. It's when they clean the gases out of coal, they mix it with limestone, and it forms the mineral gypsum, which is used in dry plasterboard and such. So that's the same stuff right there, just giant earth-made crystals. Look at this mine, right? When you think of mining, these probably aren't what you initially were expecting, but this is a salt mine. You ever think about where your salt comes from? All the salt we use on roads, water softeners, your food. It comes out of the ground. And to see these gigantic salt deposits that have been mined is, I think, very interesting. Look at this one. This is in Utah. There's a big one in New Mexico as well. This is a potassium mine. And remember, we use potassium, NPK. We use it in fertilizer. So where does that come from? Well, we've used up all the easy places to get potassium, but there are potassium salts that are down deep in the ground in the United States Southwest. And so they bring them up, and they're in a salty brine, so they have to evaporate the water out. And what they do is they dye the ponds so that they evaporate faster. And that has to do with the way that the colors absorb sunlight. So all kinds of interesting kinds of mines that we take for granted, where all these products and resources come from, but they all come from the ground. I love this saying, if we can't grow it, it has to be mined, right? First semester, we did the whole Feed the World agriculture unit, but now we're looking at the natural resources that come out of the ground, and we manipulate them. This picture here is a very large mine that's about 2 miles away from North Central High School. I drive by this mine every single day. That's 96th Street and Gray Road, between Allisonville and Keystone. Just across the street, just south of this map, there's a pretty large residential neighborhood. They had to sign a release that said any cracks that happen in their foundation, that they accept that and the mine is not liable for it. She told me that every night, about 2 or 3 in the morning, they hear explosions, large explosions, and the house shakes a little. That's because they are deep underground in this picture. You can't really see it. There's a tunnel right here, and they are mining literally underneath that neighborhood. This mine extends pretty far south and very far north, under places you don't even see it. So they are mining underneath the city of Carmel and part of Indiana. I was lucky one time I got to take a bus tour into the cave. They don't allow that anymore, but this was 20 years ago. And so we literally drove a bus all the way down that giant pit that they've carved out, and we got to go in the mine, drive underneath Carmel where they're cutting out all this rock. So why do we do that to the earth? Why do we strip the earth and make these giant explosions and holes in the ground? Well, because we need stuff. Our society loves stuff. And we think about our devices. How many devices do you have? Look at these precious metals. That's why they cost so much. Gold, copper, tungsten. Those are the things that make computer chips. Even a car, all the different elements that go into making something like a car. And as we've said earlier, most families have multiple vehicles. So in the United States, this is just like energy use. We are resource rich as well. Some of the things that come out of the ground are dangerous. These things called rare earth metals, and a lot of them are radioactive. There are things that come out of the ground that can then pollute. As we dig these out of the ground, we release other things that pollute the environment. So here's all these different weird elements that are at the bottom of the periodic table. And we use a lot of them. Look at this stat right here. This is actually old data. You can tell because it's got an iPod on it. I still have an iPod actually. I have a Gen 4 color video iPod from like 20 years ago, and it still works. Apple products, man, those are legit. China supplies at least 95% of the world's rare earths. Now, there's a reason for that. Why are we getting all these weird, crazy, dangerous metals from China? And that's why we can't cut China off when there's world's rights issues. We need China. Without China, we don't have any of this stuff that we're addicted to. Here's a map, and you can see that the United States has some, 90% of beryllium. China, look at all these different rare earths. Now, China is willing to sacrifice their environment in some of these remote areas, and they don't treat their workers very well. And so we kind of look past that. We decide, oh, we're going to just pretend we don't know about that because we still want all these metals. But that's why they mostly come from China. They are hard to extract, and China has people willing to do it for very low cost. Notice that Australia does not have any. Seems weird. The only continent where they're not pulling any, is that a geological issue? Turns out no, just they had chosen not to mine them. Another one that jumps out here that I'm going to reference is the Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo. And it's where we get over half of the world's cobalt, which is a major element that's used in our phones and electric devices. Okay, so why did I point out those three? Australia, China, and Congo. Here's what's happening in Congo. This is awful, right? And I'm going to show you some terrible things this semester, unbelievable things that humans do to the earth and to each other. Coal miners dying in hell tunnels to power your mobile device. They're being paid by Chinese firms who then collect it and sell it. Workers as young as 9 years old are going into these mines. Now over here, you see a story about her husband. She has a family with 8 children. He died in a mining accident. She doesn't even know what an iPhone is, has never seen an electric car, but that's what her husband was mining for. These are human rights atrocities. Now look at this. This is pretty recent, about a year and a half ago. The rare earths industry welcomes new United States-Australian deal. Australia has decided to join the game. This is important politically because it gives the United States some leverage over China. We can now tell China, unless you improve working conditions, we'll just get it from Australia. We don't mind paying a little more. So when we dig these things out of the ground, we usually dig out big chunks of rock, and then we have to separate the parts we want with the things we don't want. And the parts we want are called the ores. So there could be coal ore, there could be gold ore, cobalt ore. And so there are chemical ways and physical ways that we take them apart from the surrounding rock. But there you see copper ore on the right once it's been removed. Sometimes we melt it, sometimes we crush it, lots of different things we can do. And what we're talking about are resources, natural resources. Metals are natural resources. And we keep a budget of what we have and what we need. And so when we look at an area, if we're going to build a mine, we have to make sure it's going to be profitable. We have to make sure we can pay for workers' health care if there's accidents. We have to pay for, we want to make sure there's enough high grade ore that we're going to profit from it. We have to pay to fix the mine after we've destroyed the earth. There are laws in the United States. We have to put it back together. So all that goes into deciding whether or not you want to dig a mine there. So if we know there's resource underneath and we can economically extract it, that's called a reserve. We talk about, oh, what's our gold reserves? That's how much gold we know is in the ground. We can get it out relatively easily, and it's profitable. Reserves. Now, there may be more gold than we know about. That's called a resource. And if we think it's there, but we're not sure, that's called a speculative resource. We speculate that there's more. We just haven't proven it. So reserves are proven. The stuff we don't want, I like this one. It's called gang. We got our ore, that's what we want. We make money. And the junk, that's the gang. So you can see the pretty blue ore in that rock, and the white stuff we would just crush and throw away or use it for filler, that kind of stuff. So there's a whole bunch of different types of mining, and that's what we're going to look at over the next couple days here. So very brief, I just want to go through the two main types. We talk about surface mining. There's different kinds of surface mining. We can literally blast the top of a mountain off. We can dig big holes in the ground. One of the most common that's used in coal is called strip mining. Strip mining is cheap because you don't have to dip tunnels in the ground and stuff like that. So you're literally just taking one layer off at a time. And it's safe and pretty easy. The only catch is you gotta put it back together when you're done. So some vocab you need to know. We have something called the overburden. The overburden is the gang, the stuff we don't want. And so you have to remove that, set it off to the side, and then you can take out all the coal. And the cool thing about strip mining is you get 100% of the coal. You don't have to leave any in the ground, take it all out. And then you take the overburden and you put it back in place. And that's a successful strip mine. Now, the environmentalist in me looks at this bottom right picture and says, oh my goodness, humans are so stupid to do that to our planet. And then we burn it even better, right? But the human engineer in me looks at that picture and says, man, how awesome are we, right? We've figured out how to move millions of tons of earth and get what we want out of it. That's pretty impressive. The problem with a lot of strip mines is the good ores are on top and they get out the easy stuff, but then they start to run out and it becomes harder and harder. So as we deplete the good ore, high grade ore, accessible ore, then we start moving into, well, there's more gang than there is ore. And so it's not as profitable and we have to do way more damage to the earth to get it out. So it's the whole issue of taking too much. And then at what point is the mine not safe or not profitable? Here you see a couple of huge open pit mines in the world. And we have some in the United States too. I'll show you one on Tuesday. Here's Russia and Australia. And look, I mean, there's cities and towns right next to these things. The things that are released when we surface mine, first of all, we release a bunch of greenhouse gases. There's methane trapped in the rock. That all gets turned into the atmosphere. We release all kinds of toxic, what are called heavy metals, which when it rains, that gets in our water and it can poison us. I tell you, I do not want to live within 10 miles of a giant open pit mine, for sure. Probably 100 miles. Okay, so when we deplete all that stuff that's easy to get, well, then we go after the stuff that's hard because we can still make money from it. So this is called subsurface mining, and it's what most people think of as traditional mines. The classic images from the 1940s and 50s of miners going into a dark tunnel. And we'll talk a lot more about that on Tuesday as well. 40% of the United States coal is now coming from subsurface. And that number is probably going to keep going up if we continue to burn coal because we've reached all the surface coal that we can get to. Some of these mines are very, very deep, over 100 meters deep, way past the water table. One of the disadvantages here, other than safety, these are much more dangerous and expensive. We can also not remove 100% of the coal. We have to leave some of it in there because we have to have support. If you took it all out, the whole thing would fall down and kill people. This is also the only way that we can get anthracite. Anthracite is only recovered through subsurface mines. Remember, anthracite is the highest energy, cleanest, lowest pollution of coal. So I'll leave you with this today. This is a map of the coal mines that are in Indiana. So we do have a major local connection to all this. And you can see that it's a good mix of both strip and subsurface. Well, have a nice weekend, and we'll jump back in Tuesday. Some maybe in person. We'll see. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Have a good
Mr.
weekend,
Gropp.
Mr. Gropp.
Thank you.